Good morning. Today is Monday, October 27th, 2014, and this is Before the First Cup with Zorie and Lady Pitbull on UCY.TV. Good morning, lady.
Hello, how are you?
Okay, we had rain finally a little bit.
Yay! That's what the weather map says. I was wondering if anything hit the ground, actually.
Well, some of it did, but that wasn't as bad as like wind. We had so much wind. A big tree branch fell across my driveway. About 4 trees out in my field, big old branches broke off. And a friend of mine, this big tree that was in front of their house, uprooted and fell onto their house.
Whoa, that's terrible.
Yeah, the wind was just, oh man. I mean, there's tree branches and everything all over the place.
My goodness.
Yeah, but we got a little bit of rain, but nothing to really, speak of.
Right.
But the wind was just horrific.
Jeez.
Yeah, sirens were going off everywhere, and everybody, a neighbor of ours, seen us out there cutting off the branches so we could try and move the tree that fell across my driveway. I was just glad it didn't fall on my house, because my house is surrounded by big old oak trees and all, and yeah, crazy.
Oh boy, that's just not good, is it?
No. And here's me and my roommate. We're out there in the middle because there was thunder and lightning, and we're always outside when there's thunder and lightning.
Why?
I'm fascinated. I love thunder and lightning.
Yeah, I do too, but I'm not brave enough to go running around during a lightning storm.
Oh my gosh, when we used to go out to the property, Phyllis and I, whenever there was a storm, we'd jump on the quads and go up to the highest hill and go up and watch the storm. And I remember one night, our friend Joe was there, and he comes riding up on the quad and goes, "Come on, get in the house. You're going to get hit up there." And we went, go on. And he went flying back down to the house, and we stayed up there the whole time.
Oh, my goodness. Beautiful. Well, I guess I don't know, there was that movie Twister or whatever. They were like, if you bend over and you get hit by lightning, it's best to get hit in your butt. That's the safest place to get hit by lightning is on your butt. So I guess if you have your ass sticking in the air, then you'll be relatively safe.
I don't know. I've always ran out and watched lightning, and I've never even come close.
Wow.
It's just I'm one of those people that runs to the storm instead of away from it.
Right.
Just find it so exciting. It's just so much power.
Oh yeah, I mean. Thing is, though, lightning can strike up to 6 miles away or so, even longer than that, even 15 miles, in some cases.
Yeah. I don't know, the storm brings people out, all my neighbors, down the street and stuff. You've seen them all outside, looking around and talking to each other, so it was cool in that respect.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Got hit by falling trees or...
Yeah, it's cold here. The worst thing that hit us were the acorns, man. We're still getting bombarded by acorns.
Well, the wind should have taken care of a lot of those yesterday, right?
Yeah, we're hoping. And my roommate, she goes, the night that it hit, night before last, I went to bed kind of early, and she couldn't believe I slept through everything. She said things were hitting the house, and she kept thinking somebody broke in and she'd run to the front door and look. Nobody was around. I didn't hear a thing.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good then.
No, I like storms. I wanted to be awake.
Oh. Well, sometimes it's okay to sleep too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Well, it's good to have you back.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I had a rough go there last week, so... I'm here.
Yeah.
It's been a little rough.
I seen this one thing. Okay, so ISIS hasn't scared us enough, and Ebola hasn't scared us enough. Now, police imposed checkpoints, deployed drones at a high school football game. They even had the SWAT team there.
Oh, that's real nice. Just getting everybody acclimated. I actually had a helicopter follow me around this week.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you, not whatsoever. Um, on Friday, I was driving back home from work, and I passed there's a little airport, and this weird-looking helicopter flew right over the car, just in front of me, heading right to the airport. So I thought, okay, I didn't think nothing of it. A lot of helicopters go there to refuel, it's not a big deal. I didn't think nothing of it. I got all the way home, which is like exactly a half hour away from where I was originally, and I saw my neighbor on the front porch in front of the house, so I went and I was talking to her. And lo and behold, I looked down the street and, oh look, there's the same damn helicopter. It was had this very distinguished look to it. It was the same one. I can absolutely say that for certainty. And it was south of the house. I'm like, oh look, I just saw that helicopter, down in Ann Arbor, like not less than 20 minutes ago. Or a half hour or whatever. And so this sucker just goes out of sight, and then it comes back from like the east or whatever, and it totally makes a banking move, like right in front of the house, like it was taking pictures of us out there on the porch. And I'm just like, oh, come on, are you kidding me? So I gave it the restless middle finger syndrome. Salute. You know what I mean? I saluted him good. And then I called my buddy up, and he's like, yup, that sucker just flew over our house too. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And then the next day at this funeral, which happened to be one of the militia guys from the unit that's around here, he died, and sure enough, we were out there at the cemetery, and this sucker flies right over us. I mean, I'm like going, yup, that's the one, you guys, same one as yesterday. So somebody suggested it could have been the state police, but I mean, we're not doing anything anymore.
I know.
It's retarded. It's like a colossal waste of money, gas, time, resources, just to justify your stupid-ass budget, you stupid, slimy assholes. Come on.
Right.
I mean, come on.
They are out in every aspect they can to make us afraid, and it doesn't seem to be working, and I'm sure that's blowing their minds, because people are just fed up with this fear everywhere, and then at this high school, they had the SWAT team there, they had drones flying overhead, they had to go through a metal detector.
What for, though? I mean, there's no excuses here for that.
They said they got a tip that rival gangs were going to have a fight there. So they put all this, and they said there were police mingling in with the people, the crowd. They had to put all their effects into a bin so that the police could go through all of it, go through a metal detector. And, it's just they're trying to get this element of fear everywhere, and people aren't buying it anymore. They really aren't. People are going, they don't even pay attention to any of it anymore.
Right.
So it makes you wonder, what will they do next if we aren't getting scared, and we're not reacting the way they think we should be? That's the thing that should be scariest of all.
Yeah, they're going to give us something to be afraid of. Mm-hmm. Especially if all this Ebola hype doesn't work.
Well, that's already leaving the headlines. And, mostly the biggest fear and all the news of it and everything, and Obama's off in Never Neverland. Now he calls like 27 people into a meeting to address this after, it's not even in the news hardly anymore.
I don't know, man. It's really, really, really getting... I mean, it's just acclimating us to accept a police state, and they're just going to merge all of this stuff to medical tyranny, and it's all going like in a funnel type thing, you know what I mean? So before, when we get outside the other side of the stinking funnel that they're pushing us through, everybody's going to be it's going to be lockdown city.
Well, I wanted to read this thing this morning because this is what I think their eventual goal is. You know, they got to come up with something, but it's the FEMA list of presidential executive orders. And this one, like on February 16th, 1962, President Kennedy signed several executive orders which would allegedly give certain dictatorial powers to appointed bureaucrats in the event a national emergency should be declared by the president. Whichever president is sitting in the office at the designated time, at the president's discretion, in any time of increased international tension or economic or financial crisis, the EO could theoretically be enacted. These EOs signed by Kennedy would give authority to the Federal Emergency Management Agency to control communications, energy, food, fuel, farm transportation, highways, railroads, inland waterways and seaports, health, education, and welfare, draft citizens into workforces under government supervision, relocation of populations, designates areas to be abandoned as unsafe, relocates communities, and controls all public storage facilities. On February 27, 1962, Kennedy signed EO 11051, designating FEMA as the authorized agency to implement the above orders, and which authority can be redesignated by the original authority. President Nixon signed EO 11490, combining all the above to be enacted in one fell swoop. On July 20th, 1979, Carter added a few minor amendments to them. And in June 1994, then President Bill Clinton signed EO 12919, which appears to encompass all of the EOs. We have found no executive orders that would nullify any of the above, so it appears they are all considered to be on the books at the time of this writing. Given there is no constitutional authority for any president to declare a national emergency, we have wondered how the orchestrators of this plan expected to succeed in the executive orders. The plan for total control of every aspect of our lives has been under construction for a long time. As you read these executive orders, bear in mind that they mean nothing by themselves. They are not a law, nor can they become law of themselves. However, under legislation that is currently pending in most, if not all states, they would potentially take on significant meaning. The emergency health powers legislation pending in state capitals all across America, if passed, would give the government the power to declare a state of health emergency by executive order. He then would be able to hand the reins of power to whomever he chooses, including the state's emergency management agency, which could essentially act as an arm of the federal emergency agency. Apart from, and sometimes combined with, these Emergency Health Powers Act are varying forms of anti-terror bills that are virtually redefining the words terror, terrorist, and terrorism. States are busy right now creating their own versions of federal homeland security. These states' offices will oversee the process and details of the implementation of these orders. That is why it is crucial to get the legislation to stop in these states. For more information, you can read the bills combined at the War on Americans in the United States section of the website. Okay, here goes. After you've done reading these executive orders, you might wish to print them out and take them to your legislator to emphasize to them the importance of defeating the bills that are currently pending that would be the final piece needed to implement the controller's plans. Now, here's the list. Now, these are all now combined into one so that they don't have to be implemented separately, but all at once. Okay, Executive 10995, seizure of all communications media in the United States. Executive 10997, seizure of all electric power, fuels, and minerals, public and private. Executive Order 10999, seizure of all means of transportation, including personal cars, trucks, or vehicles of any kind, and total control of highways, seaports, and waterways. Executive 11000, seizure of all American people for workforces under federal supervision, including splitting of families if the government finds it necessary. And with that one, you know what comes to mind is all the movies we've seen when there were slaves and they were pulling, taking kids away from their parents and all. I mean, that just horrified me. And then the next one, Executive Order 11001, seizure of all health, education, welfare facilities, public and private. Executive Order 11002 empowered the Postmaster General to register all men, women, and children in the United States. Executive Order 11003, seizure of all airports and aircraft. Executive Order 11004, seizure of all housing and finance authorities to establish forced relocation designated areas to be abandoned as unsafe. Executive Order 11005, seizure of all railroads, inland waterways, and storage facilities, public and private. Executive Order 12919, signed June 3rd, 1994 by President Clinton, encompasses all of the above orders. So, and, as soon as I started hearing, him trying to declare a national emergency and all this, it's not good. And this is all on the books, and people just don't realize it.
Well, they've been gradually usurping us since who was that first one? Yeah, 1913. So, and it's incremental with each president, right? Each president does more damage than the last.
Every president since then could have not, just eliminated this completely, but no, they've all been just adding and adding and adding.
Right.
And
I think Jules is on with us. Are you there, Jules?
Right.
I am. Hey, good morning, guys.
How are you?
Good. How about you?
Hanging in there. Hanging in there.
Well, I look forward today. I get to go out and clean up all the tree branches and limbs and acorns and leaves and.
Yeah, we did that this weekend.
This weekend's fun. When we got a tree branch that fell across our driveway, a big one. Yeah, just a little bit of rain. I mean, there wasn't. You didn't really get real wet out there.
So this was your homework, right? Where you were going to pull up all of the executive orders taking control of things. So there were a number of those that over the last few years I've seen Barry ink things with executive orders that gave them the rights to private water on your property, that gave them the ability to take command over your private transportation, to split up families. I mean, that was in some of the most recent documentation that over the last, when is it? This is 2014, so it would have been since 2011 that we've seen. What article were you just reading?
Oh, let me bring it up.
Because why I'm asking is they're saying, print all these out and take them to your congressman before this legislation goes through. Well, when was that from? And did the legislation go through?
Yeah, I think it did.
Yeah, it did.
I think it did too.
Yeah, and this was done right after Clinton. Yeah, it was right after Clinton was out of office. And this is the FEMA list of presidential executive orders. And I have the PDF of all these, but I don't have the rest of it because it's on my other computer that's in the shop. But I did go and look these up. And let me see. I think I'm looking for in here because it tells you where you can get these. But, too, I can pass them out, too.
Yeah, well, just why don't you drop a link in the chat or tell people what website they can go to get that, because
and
I would think that would be very important for people to see, because I know most people that I talk to don't believe that.
Okay, let me see. I think I have the link,
but I mean, even the farm, there was a farm bill that came out. It wasn't a farm bill, it was a farm executive order that came out a few years ago, and I read all those with a fine-tooth comb to try to discover what new thing it is that they're planning on hijacking and ripping out from our hands. And that farm executive order had put, it was another one of these committee groups, where they put representatives from all of the major departments in the federal government in charge. And of course, just like the one that we saw for the new executive order on battling antibiotic-resistant bacteria that happened to have the Department of Defense, the Secretary of Defense was in charge. So was the executive order on the Farm Act. They put the Secretary of Defense in charge.
Yeah, really strange.
Now, why would that be?
Right, and it's just like they covered just about everything they could possibly cover. The only thing I didn't see in there that kind of surprised me was the confiscation of guns.
I think they're saving that one as a special cherry on top.
Yeah, they're saving that one. Believe me.
They couldn't do that. Now, well, I'm never say never. They could do that. What's going on right now with another school shooting, another couple shooting cops in this time in California. The lone wolf with ties to terrorism and self-radicalization over the internet in Canada. And then now we have the axe-wielding crazy in New York City. Oh, my God. It's time to executive order not only guns, but the internet.
Sure.
Yeah,
remember, the guns and the internet are two things that the UN wants to get their hands on.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it said in there, he can assign any agency he wants for any portion or all of that. Mm-hmm. And look, they've got our health. Ebola brings in the health department. And
Obamacare stocks it up to get their fingers into all of our records.
The IRS, they can get. I'm sure they'll be in charge of all our monies.
Oh my God! That they just let themselves off the freaking hook in terms of federal, in terms of in court. They figured out how to win their little legal battles in court against like the Tea Party groups and stuff. They just were like they were like, oh look, we're gonna give all of you groups that have been asking for 4 or 5 years for your tax exempt status, so therefore you can't take us to court. Look, here's the tax exempt status you originally wanted. Oh look, now
let's drop it.
Right, we're gonna drop it, and that's what the judges are doing. So
yeah, Zorie mentioned the other day that that was all case closed.
Yeah,
but we still pointed out how if none of that was going on, like how curious it was that I never in my life had a problem with my tax return until that year. And I was waiting forever, and all statuses stopped, and my tax return was just in limbo hell forever.
6 weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, some insane number. And there wasn't even, you couldn't even log in and get like tracking update anymore because that just said, well, there's a problem with your return or whatever. There was no further information, no one you could call, no one you could talk to. And the day that scandal broke, I got an email saying they were releasing my money. It was the day the scandal broke.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. So I don't know. I call absolute total bullshit on they weren't doing anything.
And then another thing to think about. Look at how all the ammunition and all these little agencies are now allowed to have guns. So what for? To enforce these executive orders.
Right. Guns and lots and lots and lots of ammo. I was actually thinking about that the other day in regards to the whole Ebola thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're also buying up. They're also buying up food stocks. From food suppliers.
Freeze-dried and
MREs.
Emergency food.
Yep.
You don't want to eat a lot of MREs. I'd let the feds have all those, personally.
Yeah, really. I let them eat it.
I heard they do terrible things to your innards. I was told, eat them sparingly if you have to.
Right. Only if you have to.
Yes, if and only if.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Abbreviated IFF.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody, you know what? I mean, we really are, because everything's pointing to these. I mean,
they've just lined it up is what they've done.
Right.
They've lined up everything that they can so that when they shoot that cue ball at full speed ahead, you're going to have, right, if you've ever studied physics, right, pool is a really good illustration of physics.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I look at, like, action and reaction and, things that happen in life. That's pretty similar. And so they're just lining all these up. So when they shoot that cue ball in there, it's going to set about 30 things, probably 100 things into motion.
Yeah.
All these agencies, they all have offices in every town, every city, and it won't be that hard to call them all in at once. Just now, go. And, this is how Hitler took over Germany. When he put all these orders lined up, and then he did it all in one day. And it was like, they said it was so instant, it was shocking, but he already had all the powers and took over just like that.
Yeah, if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it, and we're going right through the same thing again.
Yeah, and then look at the other ways we're following then. Czars, Homeland.
Yeah, Homeland, Security Czar, Ebola Czar, come on.
Right. And that's exactly the same. It's always bothered me, and it started with Obama. Is the first I really seen it brought out about the czar of this and the czar of that, and I just thought that's a Hitler.
No,
and then when Homeland
Bush had a few
czars.
Bush had a few czars, and I think Clinton had a couple of czars.
Right, but nothing like Obama. I mean,
no.
He had czars up the ass.
I want to be Queen Radio Czar.
Yeah, there you
go. And I'm going to get that printed on a business card.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
But, and I wonder why no one else brought this up, Homeland Security. And, when the news is even reporting things, they'll say, and danger to the homeland. Mm-hmm. It's just eerie to me.
Well, they're the ones that are endangering the homeland. I mean, it's obvious. It's them that's endangering their own freaking security, or perhaps it's for their security, not ours.
Well, it's a good thing you brought that up, because that's something that last night I was doing a lot of flipping over in my brain that I wanted to talk about a little bit today, is this whole psyop that, again, is being played on us as Americans, that this Ebola scare is creating. And very successfully, I must say.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a bunch of friends yesterday that I hadn't seen in quite a number of years, but we've been doing this yearly hiking thing. I don't know. I mean, I was thinking about it. I think we probably started back in the mid to late 90s with our hiking thing. And it's been sporadic, but we've tried to do it once a year. I don't think we've done it in the last few, but we all got together yesterday. So it was good to see some of my old friends. And, of course, my daughter thanked me for making it fun, Mom, for joking about Ebola all day. I didn't. Yes, I did. Every time we go walking and you'd see something like the public bathroom, like, oh, be careful you don't get Ebola.
You're kidding me.
What?
You're kidding me. They had that? Oh, I see. You were
I would, everywhere because we were at a park. But it was, I'm sure that there are people that come from all over. It was a huge state park. And So I just kept mentioning the Ebola thing. And my daughter thought it was funny. She's like, thanks for making it so fun, Mom, for mentioning the Ebola thing.
All right.
I've been thinking a lot about this, obviously, considering last week when you were gone, Wendy, I think I might have done 7 straight shows ripping apart all the different pieces between the pharmaceutical company and the executive orders and some of the technology. And we looked at, how they were tied to GMOs. And this is a whole GMO 2.0 technology that they're using in these vaccines. It was really good, but I've put a lot of time and effort into thinking about this Ebola thing. And one of the things that really started to gel yesterday was when I saw some of this new news with this, Cuomo. I don't know if you caught Cuomo making the statement the other day. We're prepared.
Too.
Yeah.
I mean, now that we have Ebola in New York, woohoo! We joined the ranks, and of course, they're the two. Now, California will probably be next, and I'll tell you why, Zorie. Because New York, California, and Texas have the most voting constituents. Think about that.
Yeah.
3 of them.
Yeah.
3 of them, and election season is coming up. And isn't that a good way to try to get the confidence of people? I don't know.
If that's a way of getting confidence, because first those 2 came out and they put in motion these mandatory quarantine.
Well, that's yeah.
And then the next day.
No, wait.
Okay.
I have a whole show to do on this, so don't blow the wad yet.
Okay.
It's only 9:30. So let's back up. So anyway, I was just pointing out. So Texas and New York are the 2 states now that have confirmed cases. We then had a story that popped up Friday, and I actually did a story on it. And hey, I got some traffic this weekend about the 2 NYPD who were caught on camera removing their hazmat gear and putting it into a corner garbage can.
Oh my God!
On Spencer Street.
I didn't see that.
Oh wait! Here, I'll even drop it into chat. Yes, I wrote a little story about it and posted it on Nick's site.
You gotta be.
Yeah, I could not freaking believe it. And of course, my sister lives in New York City, so I take an interest in the news that happens there. And just that morning, she had made some post about I'm not going e-bowling today, and I was like, "What does that mean?" Bowl?
No!
And then I see the story about the guy that came back for anyone who missed it this weekend. And apparently a lot of people did. I noticed that on all the different types of media, traffic was way down this weekend. Like people were trying to get out and do things like for the last few weekends before snow flies, at least in this region. Plus, Halloween coming up. I'm sure there were parties and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yes, for anyone who missed it, a Doctors Without Borders doctor came back from... I don't know if he was in New Guinea or Liberia. He was working with Ebola patients. And he had traveled around New York. He took 3 subway trains. I believe it was the A, the L, and the 1. He had gone to a restaurant. He had gone bowling.
Yeah, he went bowling.
He hung out with his friends. And then he got a fever.
Oh, don't forget banged his girlfriend.
Oh, I don't know if I know he hung out with her and she was at his place, but I didn't see details on that, but probably. He's been gone a while. So, and then he gets a fever. And so there were questions, and we kind of talked about this on Friday as to whether or not he directly went to the hospital or whether or not they came to pick him up. And the reason we question that, Zorie, was because of Cuomo's announcement, how we got it all under control. And here's the thing. They had done a drill, and we even listened to that video the day before in New York City. It was supposed to be this extensive drill. And I'll tell you what, I dug in more. I don't think the police were involved in getting trained, by the way. I think it was just healthcare, and I think it was nurses on how to take off and put on your gowns. because I read a few more stories, and it appears that it was 5,000 healthcare workers that got this quote unquote extensive training in Ebola. So in the story I did for Anti-Media, I was questioning whether or not the NYPD, as they're taking off their hazmat gear, and regardless, a statement came out from the police department going, well, we don't, at first it was like, well, we don't think that they were in the building. They were outside. And now I guess it was the commissioner's public, whatever they call him, the person who's responsible for public statements.
Right.
That came out and said, no, they were directing traffic and whatever. They were never in the building. But regardless, I took the FEMA classes that we did stuff like this in, okay? One of the things you learn, and just like with firearm safety, just because it's not loaded, you don't wave it around and point it at people's faces, right?
Absolutely.
You always, especially in a position of danger or something that has potential danger, practice protocol. So when it comes to the time where your front processing isn't thinking and you're working on instinct, you always do the right thing because that's how you always practiced it, right?
Right.
So taking off your hazmat gear, regardless if you'd been in the building or not, and throwing it into a street garbage can was a really stupid thing to do.
Exactly.
And then, did they take their gloves off before they took their mask off? All these things come into play, believe me, because I worked in the healthcare industry. And my mom is like flipping out over the fact that they sent in green nurses that have only been there a freaking year to go take care of a level 4 Ebola patient.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She took
There's lots more.
Yeah.
I found actually the paper that most of the subway riders read in the morning has a website, and I hit that yesterday, and it tends to be sensationalized because it's at all the newsstands as you're going to the subway stations, As you're getting to each, have you guys been to New York?
No, I have a long time ago.
Yeah, so there's usually like a paper stand that has probably gum, maybe coffee, and just papers and magazines, but always like the big New York papers will be right in front, and they always have sensational headlines. And then usually right behind that are the steps to go down into the subway,
Right.
And it's just about every single one is set up like that in New York. Somebody's got a permit to be in front of the subway station. So you always have like the top 2 or 3 New York papers with some crazy sensational headline. Well, one happens to be the New York Post. And I'm not saying they're like a Weekly World News, but sometimes they do like sensationalize a lot. But holy crap, last night, talk about Ebola coverage. Ebola Batman. We're going to look at some of these stories because way more on New York Post than I've seen in any of the mainstream, just about all the crazy details of stuff that's been going on. So we're going to look at that. But you're absolutely right. Level 1, I saw at that Bellevue Hospital where they were admitting him to, I guess a whole bunch of people said, and this is New York City, of course, screw that, and they called in sick on Friday when he was being admitted.
Yes, and you're going to see this everywhere.
Well, how nutty is that? Like, you would think that if you came down with some killer disease, that at least the hospital staff would be there to take care of you. And I was watching footage of Liberia. That's exactly what's happening there. Like, half of their hospitals are just about shut down, and they can't get any health care at all now.
Right.
Because they all stopped going to work.
And because everybody can see how absolutely incompetent the protocols are and they're not even following protocols. That's the whole problem.
Well, no one knows what the protocol is.
Right.
Exactly.
Including the NYPD, which should be a big concern for us.
Including the CDC.
Right, the CDC too. Now, backing up to these executive orders, the reason why I brought this up isn't because I wanted to really, and we can though, because it's kind of fun. I've had this Ebola on the brain. I don't know, it's the newest novelty, but I'm telling you what, by studying this very closely, there's so many agendas at play right now.
Yeah.
And like I've said, I'm not sure yet if this is bullshit or not. I'm not sure yet if there really is anyone in this country that's getting infected or if these are orchestrations. Because, look at the miraculous cures. Now, another nurse, that fam, she got released.
I've been thinking the same thing. She's cured. And I mean, more people die of the flu. What, we've had 4 or 5 cases, or what, not even that many, I don't think, that really had it. And I don't know.
More people die from drug overdoses every single
the flu.
day. And
the
alcohol.
flu season's on us.
Yeah, which of course you pointed out that these symptoms for Ebola are very similar to flu symptoms.
Yes.
So this could be interesting as everyone now is on hair trigger alert.
Right.
For vomiting and fevers.
And I read that. I
have a fever. Order. I have Ebola. You know.
I remember when I read that, guys. I read that. They said any respiratory illness, any respiratory...
Well, yes, that was that executive order. They had added respiratory illnesses to now being quarantined. So, yes, connect the next dot now. So, New York, after all this amping up over the weekend, what happens yesterday... And I thought I got this right when I first saw the story, and everyone was telling me I'm wrong, but I'm reading the news this morning. No, I was right. There is a battle brewing now between the feds, New York, and New Jersey, because New York and New Jersey have now imposed quarantines mandatory on anyone coming in from doctors, any of those doctors with border groups, humanitarian groups over in Ebola-stricken nations, and they want them quarantined for 21 days. Now,
yes,
let's not look at the 21 days, because remember, we've now heard 2 stories that have said it could possibly be 42 days that it takes, but they're still only going with the 21. But here's the thing. Cuomo, and here's where the argument, Cuomo jumped the gun. I guess Blasio, who's the mayor of New York, he took over for Bloomie, which Bloomie and Blasio, de Blasio is his name, but I call him Blasio, because that's just like a name. Blasio, I'll call him de Blasio. He's flipping out because Cuomo made an executive decision without consulting him. I was like, where have we seen Cuomo do that before?
That's right after Sandy Hook.
Sandy Hook and the SAFE Act.
That's right.
SAFE Act 2.0, which they're getting ready, I've been reading. There have been sheriffs coming out warning about this, that they're getting ready to launch, which is going to be way worse than 1.
Bingo. We can totally see where this is going.
Why not start with New York, right? New York would be the first big state with lots of population to get under military martial rule. Now, here's the thing. We have flu season starting. We have now mandatory quarantines. We have an executive order. And I mean, maybe the feds are just playing this game, going, oh, New York and New Jersey. Yeah, and remember, the governor of New Jersey, I had been reading, I can't remember, Christie. He's supposedly like one of the big picks for the nomination for running for president, isn't he?
I don't know.
I don't think
he was. Yeah.
People are jumping off that bandwagon and they're starting to push Bush.
Yeah, Bush.
You knew that was going to happen. It's going to be Bush and Clinton.
It is going to be Bush and Clinton. I said that a long time ago.
Yeah, what a horrifying thought.
I know.
And they would be perfect to implement all this shit.
Who? Bush?
Either
Bush and Hillary.
Or Clinton. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, you got de Blasio, who's throwing a fit. You got Cuomo and Christie, who did what they wanted to do outside and now the federal government, just like I said, with the guns. Cuomo was the first one to jump on that, and the Fed program never went through. Remember, that was before Obama read his 43 executive actions that never got executed.
Right.
After Sandy Hook. So now they have this female doctor who has been put into quarantine. She was the other one that came back from one of those infected nations. And she's got an attorney, and she's throwing a shit fit. She says she's in a... But did you listen to any of her interviews? I listened to an interview this morning as I was drinking my coffee. They got her in some dinky room with a porta potty.
A tent.
Right, not even a shower in there.
Yeah. I was like, what? That's quarantine? I mean, come on, guys.
Hey, that's FEMA quarantine, man. That's FEMA. It's all FEMA.
I was horrified. After last night, my research, I started really digging into the finances of Congress after they announced how the military-industrial complex is making the biggest profits ever in Q4 since we ran after ISIS. Hey, I called that one. Q4 profits were on the line, and we had to start bombing the shit out of somebody as we're scaling down troops in Afghanistan, which I saw. This was the last day or whatever going on there. And this is just so orchestrated. Yeah, U.S. Marines marked the end of combat operations in Afghanistan. That was posted this morning, and there was a post yesterday how we just had another bumper crop of poppies.
Isn't that
isn't that so wonderful?
And heroin use is going off the top.
Yeah, it is going off the charts.
It's
absolutely
cheaper and more powerful than it's ever been, ever.
Yep. And then we have all these children self-radicalizing themselves to be lone wolves over the internet.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just see this all. I mean, it really is. It's like a big, fat, horrible zit right now.
Mm-hmm.
And anything could set it off. So getting back to this Ebola thing. So now they've set the precedent to quarantine somebody. They've even set the precedent to have the states take control over this, which is scary because Cuomo, I don't trust that dude as far as I could throw him.
Hell no.
He's like a little czar. You want to talk about czars? He likes his fiefdom. Cuomo was always, I haven't figured it out if he thinks he's going to jockey for like nomination for the party. I don't know what his dealio is.
They're shuffling him around in some insane, there's some nefarious crap going on. I mean, because Cuomo and, I don't know, the other, the other dude, could just because they're like standing up against the federal government, something, Krispy Kreme, right? Yeah, but just because they're doing that, something is afoot there. Something doesn't seem right because of this move. Like, I think they're pretending to be like, oh, we're really going to follow our own protocols here and, you know, hey, states' rights and all this crap. But I think there's some other nefarious thing going on around here.
In the back room, yeah.
In the back rooms. I mean, they're just, and so now, oh my God, these states are all of a sudden implementing their own protocols, and Obama
not reporting to the White House, it stated.
And the White House is flipping out about it.
Well, right, so it makes you wonder if we're not having, I mean, we've talked about, you know, this whole plan that they're implementing, but if they're having internal struggles, and it sure seems like there is a power struggle going on, at least between New York and the feds. You know, New Jersey's close enough, so why not? And de Blasio, I mean, they're both big states. And Newark, by the way, one of the reasons why they joined together on this is because Newark International Airport out of New Jersey is one of the main routes into New York City. Most of the time I flew into Newark, actually. You'd fly into Newark, and then you hop the bus. It's $10 for the bus. And you drove, I don't know, probably about 45 minutes, and the bus drops you off at Port Authority in Times Square. And then you go into Port Authority, and you find your subway and go wherever you're going to go, you know. But then you also have JFK. JFK typically is your international airport, though. JFK is in New York City, but you typically don't fly to JFK if you're flying from within the United States. I mean, you might, but I never did. I always flew into New Jersey, and then you take the bus into New York.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
JFK's the international airport. See,
right? I've done that too. I've totally had a connecting flight and I went through New Jersey.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons. But anyway, here let me bounce to my page because I want to play Cuomo because he made me feel so damn safe.
That's funny.
That's what I actually posted it with that. I was like, oh, Cuomo, I feel so safe now.
I honestly think that it's some kind of a ruse where they're pretending to be like all, you know, well, we're going to follow our own protocols. We're not going to listen to the federal government. I think could be fake, you know, like staged. Like, we're going to fight each other right now. We're going to have disagreements right now. And we're going
maybe to throw you off your guard.
Absolutely. Well, in the back rooms, they're still kissy-facing all over the place. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I'm worried about, especially in New York, I'm worried about the schools. I'm worried about, here's one of the things that is on the New York State Senate docket right now that I've talked about before. Maybe you guys don't remember, but they want to make the HPV vaccine mandatory in New York, and it is up in front of the New York legislature for votes. Guys. It's on the docket. And so what I'm seeing is dotted lines here to mandatory vaccinations in New York, which I always said, if they do that, we're out of here. My kid and I are over the border. I don't give a shit where, because it's not happening. I've done a whole show on that HPV vaccine. Those are those virus-like engineered freaking nanoparticles. Okay? Yeah. Not happening. That's the same vaccine that they are suing the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation from India for those 26,000 girls who were injected with that shit without proper, whatever they call it. They weren't properly informed as to what they were getting.
Right, and when it's mandatory, you think, wow, they're going to give my kid a shot at school without even asking my permission.
Well, remember, last week I told you I got a robocall from the school.
That's true.
And that's exactly what it was about. We are giving flu vaccines at school. Make sure you sign the form that we've sent home in your child's backpack.
Oh, my God.
I've never heard that before. Zorie said back when she was in school, they used to do flu vaccines and stuff in school. Never since I was in school.
But the measles and mumps and all those.
What?
They never did. I started in 72, I think. I started kindergarten. So from 72 to 86, they never did vaccines.
I started in the 50s, and I can remember being in first grade and having to stand in line to get my polio vaccine.
Damn, really?
Yes, they used to do it in schools. You got all your shots at school then.
That's crazy.
My God.
Well, now remember though, Big Pharma's been wrapped into the whole Big Pharma military, industrial, big tobacco, prison, school complex, right?
That's about it.
So they got to make profits. It wasn't profitable when it was done as part of taxpayer money for your, $2 a vaccine. We got to make sure that it's, what do we see when Duncan was sick and they were talking with that Brindicafore? Wasn't it like $50,000 or $500,000 a dose? Some crazy number. All right, here, I want to play, this was from Friday. This is, did I connect? I guess we didn't. Can you connect me? I'm a host on the call.
Yeah. Okay. I'm ready.
Starts with a J. I always forget. I need to actually, when he's playing, I'm going to go fill up my cup because I am majorly brain dead this morning.
I'll go for it.
Too much dead pollen and I don't even know if we have pollen, but at least molds down in the woods yesterday.
Wow. And you didn't hear my helicopter story.
Mm-mm.
No. I'll have to tell you later.
Okay.
I told everybody else, though.
All right. Yeah, they're flying all over, actually. They've been doing low sweeps all around. I'm sure they're looking for harvest. At least in New York, they are.
They were following me.
What?
They were following me.
Oh, it's possible.
2 days. Oh, it was. Okay. Go for it.
All right. Governor Cuomo says, we are prepared for Ebola. He is just setting himself up for the... Oh, and by the way, I'm going to make a surprise for everybody later. There was a video of de Blasio giving a statement as well, and we could pop over there, but he really didn't say much. But the best part about it was the... what do they call them? The sign language interpreter.
Oh yeah,
sign language guy sitting next to him, like decoding the speech that he was giving.
Yeah.
Except remember, he was talking about Ebola and symptoms. So just imagine what the sign language for that looked like. It was freaking hysterical. So
do they even have a symbol for it?
It was like taking your hand and making it like show things spewing out of your mouth. So I'm gonna actually set that to music, I think. and post it on YouTube. I'll see if I can get that done for tomorrow. That might be fun.
That's funny.
All right, anyway, so here, let's play this Cuomo clip about we are prepared for Ebola. I feel so damn safe in New York. I take my little can of Lysol with me everywhere.
Dallas, and we learned from it. And this is New York. We hoped that we wouldn't get such a case, but we expected that we would. And we have been preparing for weeks, literally. We did a session this week. We had 5,000 healthcare workers come in. They've all been trained. We're working with the hospitals together with the union that represents the healthcare workers, 1199 here in New York. So the workers feel that they've had the training, they have the equipment, we've gone through the protocols, we've drilled. We then had 8 hospitals designated, Bellevue is one of them, as the receiving hospitals for this situation. So we were fully prepared, and the team felt fully prepared. This happened to be a doctor, so he had information about the disease. When he saw that he had a fever and he believed he was symptomatic, he presented himself to the hospital. And we were prepared, Allison. It was handled exactly right. A team went out with protective gear. He was picked up. He was brought right to a pre-prepared isolation unit. So it couldn't have proceeded better.
But see, Governor, here's what worries New Yorkers today. As recently as, I believe, Tuesday, this patient was riding the subway. And I ride the subway every day, as do 6 million other New Yorkers. And, you know, sometimes you are packed in there like sardines. If one person sneezes, the rest of us catch a cold. So how can New Yorkers feel safe today to take the subway?
Well, I understand the fear that comes from that word now, Ebola, and it is scary. There's no doubt about that. But a little dose of reality also, right? This is not transmitted like the flu is transmitted, or a common cold, or a common virus. It's not about sneezing, etc. This is basically bodily fluids transfer when the person is symptomatic. The more ill the person is, the more contagious the person is. But the person has to be symptomatic. The doctor presented himself when he had a 103 fever, as it has been reported. So as soon as he saw he had a fever, he presented himself to the hospital. And at that point, everything that should have happened exactly right.
So you would ride the subway today. You will ride the subway today, we hear.
Yes.
Which lines?
Yes.
Which lines are you going to ride?
Yes.
He was on 3 separate lines. Which
the A and the L, which are the trains that he... A, L, and the 1 train. I'll ride any one of the 3. We have to separate sometimes, Allison, the fear from the reality, or the irrational fear, if you will, from the reality. And we have a dose of irrational fear. Now, being New Yorkers, a little anxiety can keep you safe, right? And it's not a bad thing. But undue anxiety is unproductive, and there's no reason for undue anxiety in this situation.
Okay.
So what gets me about this, hold on, let me disconnect myself so we don't echo, is that was Friday, right? So he's like being so laissez-faire. Like, oh, don't worry. I mean, a little bit of anxiety's good, but I'll ride the train. So then we see de Blasio goes to the meatball shop. This is the restaurant where the doctor ate.
Right.
And actually has lunch. And then we see, I don't know, was it a commissioner? Let me see. I saw the video yesterday. New York City politician declares Ebola bowling alley safe. Look, ma, no hazmat suit. Elected officials went on a comical Ebola tour of New York City on Saturday.
Oh, my God.
Visiting the same establishments that Dr. Craig Spencer did. So they got all this going on. But on the backside, then declare this quarantine thing.
Right. That's what is getting to me.
Now, they also let Spencer's girlfriend go home yesterday.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did. She is under now self-quarantine, just like he was, and then went and traveled the city. But they let her go home. So she is not under quarantine, though she, like you said, they probably were banging after he came back.
Yeah.
And we know that it stays in semen for 72 days.
Yes.
At least.
Or longer.
That's crazy.
They let her go home. Now, this, it says manager, this is updated New York Post. Manager claims tenant who bowled with Ebola doctor is now under home quarantine. I wonder how close this is to my sister that's talking about Brooklyn. I thought he was in Harlem.
Jeez.
Right? They said his apartment was in Harlem. But then I was seeing Brooklyn. I mean, maybe I don't think they're that near to each other. I know we got on the express train one time, and we passed all of our stops, and we ended up in Harlem, and my sister said, Jules, when the doors open, walk as fast as you can across the platform and get on that other train. Go! So, I don't think they're that close.
I think that, I don't know, it's... Part of me wants to think that this guy was... I mean, if Doctors Without Borders has anything to do with the CIA, and they probably do.
Well, I've read that. I don't know for certain, but I've read that, yes.
Right. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe this guy went to the Ebola bowling alley as a damn joke. You know what I mean? Just to facilitate jokes about it. And he was allowed to walk around. He was allowed to take the trains. He was allowed to take a cab, all that. So, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing I was saying as a doctor. Just as a doctor, and I don't care, what organization, your doctor, Hippocratic Oath. If you just came back from one of these countries, what a dumbass you would be walking around and exposing other people. So this woman who's now bitching about being in quarantine, I mean, this is the thing that I was spending some time thinking about between last night and today, is what diametric opposition this is creating. Because on one hand, I don't want mandatory quarantines for like me and my family. But on the other hand, anybody coming back who would put other people at risk from an Ebola nation, I think should at least have the common sense to quarantine themselves.
Especially if they're a doctor, and especially if you laid eyes on the horror that was going on over there.
Exactly.
And you had hands-on contact with them.
I mean,
exactly.
Seriously? You're going to look and see these people dying in front of your face that you really can't do anything about? If you were really over there, and if you were really exposed, you wouldn't want that same thing like happening in New York, would you?
And you wouldn't be bitching about it.
Exactly.
You wouldn't be bitching about being put into quarantine. Now, though, in hearing this interview with this woman about the type of facility they have her in, what on earth is that? As we have, and I was just looking through my behind the curtain page, I really started, I got on a kick where I was going to expose all these bastards for making money in the military-industrial complex. As they announced profits were through the roof, that just made me so mad. So I found where all their financial reports are. Some of them did actually report where all their stock options are, though I didn't see any that were made public that had like Boeing or Lockheed Martin listed. Because, those are probably the guys who decided not, because it really isn't, it's not mandatory to put them online. You have to report them, but it's not mandatory to put your financial statements online.
Well, remember that site, and I don't have it on this computer, but where all the contracts are going out daily? Did you go there?
Oh, well, that's defense.gov, but I'm looking at who is invested. That's actually on, I think it's defense.gov has it.
Yeah.
One of them does. But here, I'm going to play, I can reconnect now. I'm going to play an interview that they did with this woman now that they've quarantined. Oh, she's not a doctor. She's a nurse. She is a nurse. I thought they said she was a doctor. This is a New Jersey nurse who is now experiencing mandatory quarantine. This is after Spencer came back.
Amy. We're going to move on now, though, to the new developments in the Ebola story. The nurse who was quarantined under those tough new rules is harshly criticizing government officials, saying she was treated like a criminal. This as the latest patient, that doctor in New York City, is entering a difficult and critical period in his treatment. ABC's Lindsay Davis is at Bellevue Hospital, where that doctor is being treated this morning. Lindsay?
This is actually the wrong clip, but I should probably play it because it has an update on him. This is actually the clip where they're just talking about it. There's an interview with her. She did an exclusive yesterday. But here, we'll play this one while I find that.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Dan. Yeah, Dr. Spencer said to be entering the next phase of the illness, now experiencing gastrointestinal symptoms. Meanwhile, his fiance left here last night to be quarantined at home. But a very different story playing out this morning in New Jersey.
Casey Hickox under quarantine and speaking out. The first high-risk traveler to be automatically quarantined, saying she was treated like a criminal by New Jersey health officials. Writing in an open letter to the Dallas Morning News, the Doctors Without Borders volunteer recounts what she describes as a harrowing experience when she returned from treating Ebola patients in Sierra Leone. I sat alone in the isolation tent and thought of many colleagues who will return home to America and face the same ordeal. She said she was held for 6 hours, grilled by officials and given only a granola bar and water, detained even after her temperature was taken at a healthy 98 degrees.
This is a difficult situation to deal with, and my heart goes out to her because she's someone who's been trying to help others and is obviously ill.
But Hickox says she was not ill, just upset when officials made the call to rush her to University Hospital, writing, "My cheeks were flushed. I was upset at being held with no explanation. The scanner recorded my temperature as 101. The female officer looked smug. You have a fever now," she said.
Now, here's something, I mean, think about this. They could say your temperature is anything.
And welcome to Camp FEMA.
Absolutely. And if you get angry, your body temperature rises.
Yep, it does.
Yeah, your heart rate goes up.
Yeah. So think about the precedent that this is setting.
Yeah.
This was haunting me last night in my dreams. The precedent this is setting. And we spent a show last week, Wendy, reading this executive order that my friend sent me from September that made this new group that was going to be in charge of combating antibiotic-resistant bacteria.
Ew.
And on the surface, it doesn't sound like a big deal until you start dissecting the executive order.
Oh, my God.
And
I haven't heard
we dug in. Remember, Zorie? There was some major stuff in there about the database that is under the CDC that's already being used to track healthcare professionals and whether or not they got their vaccine.
Oh, wow.
They talk about the patient healthcare records. They talk about, I'm telling you, and then coupled with that other one that came before it, adding respiratory diseases to quarantinable offenses.
And Obamacare.
And Obamacare, yes, absolutely. There was a really ugly picture that was being painted when you then couple it with what is going on right now.
Absolutely.
And those were just from September and the end of September and the end of August.
My friend in Texas, now everyone that he knows has this respiratory infection that they've had for 3 weeks now and can't get rid of it.
Yeah, that's what... I know somebody who died from that a couple of months ago. That was one of the funerals I was at.
Down there, they've had some pretty brutal winds and things. Do you know, like, they have this really fine dust down in Texas, unlike up here where it's always damp.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really dry down there. But I would have to imagine that allergies and respiratory ailments down in the Southwest, especially where it's so dry, and who the hell knows? I mean, you got to remember too that WIP facility from the last I saw is still leaking over down near Carlsbad Caverns, and that when we first saw the original track, I don't remember. I think it was called the Hypersplit model that they were using from NOAA. they did the hypersplit model showing how it was all going all over Texas and Oklahoma, mind you.
That's true, and now you hear nothing at all about it.
No,
Like,
well,
yeah.
Libby's been following up on it every other week with that Don Hancock. He's the watchdog there in New Mexico, but you're not seeing anything in the mainstream, and that has not been settled. They started shipping all that nuclear waste, and remember, that's waste from the Manhattan Project, people. That's the most toxic waste in the United States that they were trying to find.
World, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, in the whole world. And I think you're right, actually, on that. And they, in the interim, because they wanted to get it out of the ditch at Los Alamos after the wildfires 2 years ago, after that fire, which then we found out was an explosion of one of the barrels at the WIP facility, they started shipping it to Andrews, Texas, which is in southwest Texas. Well, a little bit north, but it's on the western side of Texas, which was owned by the billionaire sitting over the Oligoff Aquifer, remember?
Right.
The EPA came after them, and I don't know, they must have paid off enough people to say, no, it's not on top of the aquifer. And it's all being stored above ground. And that's in the barrels that, remember, they were talking about what caused the explosion. They said that they think they used the wrong kitty litter.
That's right.
So,
it's amazing how quick those stories just die.
Well, absolutely. It's gone. So, respiratory ailments, though, and I mean, they're going to be everywhere here. In the next few months, guys, we're all going to have something. I mean, it's what happens in the wintertime.
Right,
Your
and
immune
what are they
system
going to
goes
do
down.
when everybody gets the flu and they're all going to be calling Ebola?
Well, that's what I think is part of the plan here.
Well, Shali was suggesting something yesterday that perhaps one of these 300 mutations could be an artificial mutation where they've already mutated it for us in the form of Ebola/flu/ that respiratory ailment. I mean, you know what I mean? They could be combining all this crap artificially and just running around spreading it. I mean, they could be doing any number of things.
Or it could just be mutating itself 300 times
Yeah.
per host.
Right.
That is like twice the number of what they even see in animals.
See, that's crazy. And they've been testing it in a warm climate, like in Africa. This is only a beta test over there.
They've been testing it all over. There's 4, I think we now read about 4 human trials going on right now. And I saw, how convenient is this? I actually posted this on my page with a little snarky comment. We just read last week that one of the places they were going to be doing the testing with the new human vaccines that haven't been ever tested was in Mali. And Mali had no cases, but it was along the border with one of the infected countries. And lo and behold, doesn't the first case of Ebola show up in Mali?
Yeah.
And now the person died.
I thought it was a kid, right? I'm just talking about the colder climates. Do they really know, like, what it will do when it gets, like, below a certain temperature?
Well, here's something that a certain host was discussing on another network that I'm not even going to, of course he always has inside sources.
Right.
But I'm just going to say, from what I understand about science and having studied health for many years, trying to decode my own issues, he's absolutely right. We talked about this in the very beginning about airport screeners, even the TSA. I kind of felt bad for them. If you were at an international airport and you had these people coming in and you were questioning them and they were standing within 5 feet or 10 feet of you, when you speak, spittle comes out of your mouth. You might not see spit, but there is liquid that comes out in the air as you speak, okay? Yes. So what this other host was saying that they discovered is that once you get below a certain temperature, and I don't remember what the temperature was, but hey, probably something like right now it's 45 degrees here. When it gets chilly, what happens to moisture in the air? Why do you see a haze when you're in the hills?
Make like a contrail out of your mouth.
It becomes particulate.
When it's cold, like when you're in the hills, in hill country here, which is down southern New York, and at night it's really chilly, And then in the morning, the sun comes up. So your body is the sun. You have body heat inside of you, 98.6 degrees, okay? Mm-hmm. You have fluids in your mouth, and it's chilly outside. You form...
Condensation.
Exactly. Which means that even if it wasn't airborne, it sure is now.
Exactly. And this is the thing, man. I mean,
so originally, when my friend and I were like kind of sorting through this, he had made a comment about, well, it's a tropical disease. And I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. So we're safe up here in New York with winter coming. But this brings up some pretty interesting, scary thoughts because that other host is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
In the northern part of the country, we are probably at 45 degrees as low at night. I mean, I think it got down to 39 here last night. It was pretty chilly. It's 45 right now at 10:15 a.m.
It's 49 here now.
So, think about how we have the bulk of the U.S. population on the East Coast.
Getting ready to go into those lower temperatures now at the coming of November.
And getting ready to go into flu season.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you wonder, though, is that why flu spreads so fast?
Yeah, it is, because that's why flu spreads so fast in colder climates up here. That's why everybody waits for the fall and the winter. That's why, you know what I mean? And then come the spring, their flu kind of goes away.
Except for this year. If Weather Channel, which Dane pointed out was owned by Bain Capital. Did we just see that the other day?
Yep.
Wasn't that Romney's old company?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah, so, but the Weather Channel they have their flu map. So for a while there, I used to check that all the time just to kind of track, whether or not anomalous things were happening. Mm-hmm. And all summer long, they had flus on there.
Wow.
And remember, we had enterovirus too, but I brought that up on the show once. I was like, hey, it's like July. How often do we have like flu outbreaks in July? Because you don't typically.
Right.
Typically it's now, this time of year.
Yeah, it starts now, and then it ramps up around, January.
Well, and January is probably the end for getting the shots. I remember we followed that closely the one year, like when they were really trying to push the agenda for getting your flu vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things, speaking about Ebola, one of the things we talked about in the very beginning that I postulated, I talked about an air purifier that I had a long time ago that had UV. Do you remember that? And I was questioning whether or not the ultraviolet would kill Ebola. Do you remember that or no?
No,
And I mean, I didn't know, but I kind of questioned it. So then about 2 weeks ago, a video comes out about this new Ebola robot. Did you see that? And I think we played it on the air.
I actually read that a few Mondays ago.
Yeah.
And we played the video. And so they're looking at rolling it out all over the place. It uses UVC to kill bacteria and viruses.
In like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
A whole room.
Yeah, it's great. And they have air purifiers that have that. See, when I first started looking into this, I was like, oh, you got to be careful, like with a HEPA filter. Some HEPA filters have larger holes in the filters, and you got to look at the size of the virus versus the size of the holes in the HEPA filters. So like an air purifier and putting yourself in a room, I mean, if there ever really was like a big outbreak, zombie disease floating around, you might not be safe using a HEPA filter. But a few things I discovered. So the Ebola virus is 0.08 microns. Most HEPA filters are 0.03 microns. And you can get them with 0.01 microns. But I found an air purifier out there that not only has a HEPA filter with a 0.01 micron filter, but it also has electrostatic. So that'll get hair and stuff out of the air, right? It makes it kind of drop out. Mm-hmm. It has ozone generation.
Ooh.
And it has UVC.
No shit. What's the name of that machine?
Actually, you can. There's quite a number of them on Amazon. There's a couple of them. I think that one was the
What's the price range?
Like $150 to $250. So not that bad. It's. I was very surprised. I mean, it's not going to be a $39 unit that you get at the local drugstore, but I'm telling you, this one that I saw is up to 3,000 square feet, and that's going to cover most sized houses for sure.
UV, huh? That's pretty good.
UVC, yeah.
Interesting.
So anyway, the reason why I brought that up is because then a story came out yesterday from Mercola. I like Dr. Mercola. He puts out a lot of good
stuff. Dr. Mercola.
Yeah, he put out a story yesterday that says ozone therapy, a possible answer to Ebola. It says, by invitation of the president of Sierra Leone, Dr. Robert Rowan and his team is going there to teach healthcare workers how to treat Ebola using ozone. So these multi-units that I was looking at have ozone as well as UVC. And that Ebola robot had UVC. That's what they were using.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I'm always looking at plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Okay, remember that. So I'm just trying to find a way, like, if it ever becomes necessary. And I had been looking at micron size because I'd been telling everyone, look at N95 masks. And then I had read that N95, the micron size is too large. You have to get M100s to be safe.
Right.
But this definitely seems to have some promise. It says Ebola hijacks your immune system and suppresses it. Once your immune system kicks, it launches a cytokine storm, and this is what causes the lethal hemorrhaging. Ozone modulates the cytokine storm. Ozone can be administered in many different ways. It's extraordinary in terms of its anti-infective and antiviral action. And yes, on this air purifier, that is the setting that's called sanitize, by the way. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I always knew, though, you're not supposed to breathe it, is what I had read. So I was always a little afraid of ozone, you know.
Right.
Because it's O3 versus O2.
Oh. Yeah, but who stands right down next to, you know, they're usually down close to the ground.
Right, or wherever. I mean, you don't want to stand in front of it and, like, breathe it. But you could smell it for certain. I mean, I remember when I had that old ozone air purifier, you could always smell it when the ozone was turned on. Ozone can be administered in many different ways. I'm sorry. It's like early here and it's Monday. It's extraordinary in terms of its anti-infective and antiviral action. It has virtually no toxicity, making it a prime candidate for both prevention and treatment. With bacteria, ozone works by puncturing the membrane of the bacteria, causing it to spill its contents and die. It also inactivates viruses, and it does so. It inactivates viruses, and it does so 10 times faster than chlorine. Now, back when this Ebola thing started, Pigmine had a video that said bleach is your best friend in Ebola, and the UV works 10 times faster. No, the ozone. Sorry. So I don't know. Just a little tidbit to throw that out there. I think that it's pretty interesting to know that there could be a way to combat this, and it really makes me question then if they are talking about rolling out these UVC robots, which, you know, I didn't see any price tag, but I could guarantee you they were pretty damn expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Why the hell aren't they just getting some air purifiers and telling people to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Because the big companies want to push the robot.
And the vaccines.
Right. They don't want you to know there's another way other than vaccines to, you know, put a stop to this.
That's correct.
Right. So I don't know. I dropped that Mercola story into chat. If anyone who is not in chat wants to, there's a 21-minute video. Don't watch it now. Watch it after the show. There's a 21-minute video. It's the interview with that Dr. Robert Rowan, who has been invited to Sierra Leone to train them on ozone. And then there's a big story that goes along with it. It is at articles Mercola, MERCOLA.com, and the title of the story is Ozone Therapy, a possible answer to Ebola. It was from October 26th, so it was yesterday. I would highly recommend checking that out.
That's awesome. Thank you.
It made me excited. You're welcome. And yeah, like I said, on Amazon, they had quite a number of units that he had either 4, 5, or 6-way sanitation.
So what are they called? What are they called so that you can look them up?
I can find one for you guys. Let's get on to something else that I can get started, and I'll find one.
Sure.
I'll do a search. But I'm sure that you can find them. I mean, if you could search search ozone air purifier, or I think I was originally searching like 0.01 micron air purifiers, how I came upon it.
Oh,
and then I started digging into them.
That's awesome.
Anyway. Oops. Disconnect. Skype just randomly decides to echo. It had been on all this time, and then it just randomly decided to echo. So where do we go from here? I had the story about, actually, here's the quarantine nurse, the interview. This is where we were going to go. And then we didn't. I got sidetracked. This is the actual interview with the nurse that is in quarantine in New Jersey.
Cool.
Maybe.
Can you describe to me, like, where you are right now? What does it look like? Are you in the hospital in a room? Are you?
Sure.
What's happening?
I am outside of the university hospital itself in a different building, I believe, although I can only say what I can see from my tent. I am in a tent within a building, and it's just a basic tent structure. There's a hospital bed, obviously, to bring me food. I have kind of a porta potty type restroom, no shower facilities, and no connection with the outside world except my iPhone, which I insisted that I brought with me when I arrived late Friday night. I heard from my mother last night, who called me concerned and said, Governor Christie just said in an interview that you were, quote unquote, obviously ill. And this is so frustrating to me. First of all, I don't think he's a doctor. And secondly, he's never laid eyes on me. And thirdly, I have been asymptomatic since I've been here. I feel physically completely strong and emotionally.
I'm going to stop for 1 second because I just saw, looking at the playlist, that since this came out, she's now tested negative.
Right.
Yeah, but then test her test her in 10 days or 20 days from now.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I brought this up in the very beginning when we first started talking about this in Africa. There was a story that came out about, I think there were 10 individuals that had flown to Italy. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And they had tested negative, but then they discovered that there was another strain and that the test wasn't effective. And again, we were saying about the mutations.
Yeah.
Who's to say that it's not going to mutate to the point where a test isn't going to show positive?
Absolutely.
All right, here, let me play the rest of this.
Completely exhausted. But for him to say, I'm obviously ill, which is even a strange statement. What does that mean? Someone define that for me, because I think I don't quite understand what obviously ill means. But I am here to tell you that I am completely fine physically, and being held here is just, I just don't understand.
Do you understand the need of governors, be they from New Jersey or New York or Illinois, to say, we can't take this risk that somebody is out there with a fever or will spike a fever 8 or 9 days after they arrive? We need to make sure that they're in isolation till we know they are past the danger zone. Do you understand that psyche?
I completely don't understand it. It is completely not understandable to me. It is not based on any clear published health evidence. And
now I'm going to stop there because that's where she's wrong. That's this diametric opposition that I'm struggling with. Yes, I think absolutely. If you've been over in a country where they have mass infection, I think that you have a duty to make sure that you're not infecting others. But do you want to be put in a facility? No. And we talked about this weeks ago about, putting people on a ship, let's say, off the coast before they're allowed to come here. I mean, I don't want to be forced to go somewhere, but I think we would have a duty to others to make certain that because we did something. I didn't choose to go to Sierra Leone or Liberia.
Right.
So I shouldn't have to be exposed to whatever disease you're bringing back. I didn't decide to go there. You're being selfish by demanding that you be allowed to walk around unknowing. Just because you feel fine today, you still could be shedding virus, correct?
Sure.
Yeah, but they should also have better facilities for putting you in quarantine.
Well, exactly. And you don't want to be forced to be somewhere. I mean, how scary is that? That's martial law. That is holding you against your will.
Right, and no communication with the outside world except she insisted on having her phone. But the way it seems, they didn't even want her to have that.
Yeah, and she got to talk to her mom. All right, here, let me play.
And she had no idea where she was.
Yeah, she was looking out the tent. She's
Welcome
I'm outside the hospital. Yeah, it's really scary. All right, here.
Not the recommendation of public health and medical experts at this point. I think we have to be very careful about letting politicians make medical and public health decisions. And all the evidence about Ebola shows that if you are not symptomatic, you are not infectious. It's really...
The scary thing is, do you trust any of them?
No.
Because I don't know if I even trust if you're asymptomatic, you can't spread it. But again, we don't even trust that there really could be an Ebola epidemic going on here being spread. So
I think what they want is everyone to be confused, and it's working.
The confusion is the root of it. You're right, absolutely right. The more they confuse everyone, their staff, CDC, as long as everything stays confused, no one's going to be able to follow a set course of action until it's too late when everybody's under medical tyranny and martial law.
Right, exactly. All right, here, there's another 50 seconds.
Inhumane. I just came back from one of the most difficult months of my life, and I am completely asymptomatic, and no one knows, no one can predict if I will develop Ebola or not in the next 21 days, and most aid workers come back will not develop Ebola. So to quarantine everyone in case, when you cannot predict who may develop Ebola or not, and to make me stay for 21 days, to not be with my family, to put me through this emotional and physical stress is completely unacceptable.
I think that was it.
Why don't they let her just sit in a damn UV sauna for 21 days? I mean, come on.
Well, that or why... Now, they let the girlfriend of the doctor who did have it go.
Yeah, what is up with that?
That's what I mean, mass confusion. You can't figure out what their logic is.
Right, you can't follow it.
No, and I don't get... And it was, though, that was in New York. This woman is in New Jersey, but Cuomo said that he... and Christie are in lockstep over this, that they're in absolute agreement. I think her name is she Samantha Power?
I think so.
No, it's Hawks.
Oh, right. Yeah, I just saw her name. Who is Samantha Power? Samantha Power.
Oh, isn't she the lab assistant or one of the ones that was one of the nurses that was involved in the first guy who came over that died? I think that was her name.
I don't know. Let's check this out. I'm not sure who this is.
I can't keep straight of everybody.
She's an ambassador. Former U.S. ambassador at large, Susan Johnson Cook, discusses Samantha Power's trip to New Guinea. So who the fuck is...
U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Samantha Power arrives in Ebola-stricken Guinea today. It's the first stop on her visit to the 3 countries in West Africa, Guinea.
Oh, we read about her on Friday, Zorie. She was the newly appointed UN ambassador to Ebola.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God! You gotta be kidding.
Yes, Ebola the UN ambassador
and
an
Ebola czar.
Yes. Okay, here.
Is that really an official title?
Leon.
No, the Ebola czar is not.
Or an Ebola ambassador. I thought ambassadors were for countries.
I don't know.
That have been hardest hit by the deadly virus. Joining me now is Susan Johnson-Cook. She is the former U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom. She's been the faith advisor to 2 presidents. And she joins me here this morning. Ambassador, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
What is sort of the mission for Ms. Power at this point? What is she hoping to accomplish?
Well, first of all, let me send my thoughts and prayers to the presidents of those countries and to the people of those nations. And to the ambassadors who are there, my colleagues. You know, her mission is to make sure that there's attention brought to this issue, that we might find some healing, some solution for healing. So I think it's courageous, number one. And number two, you know, had this epidemic happen in another nation, another continent, I think we would have been on it a lot quicker. So the people...
Here's something that I'm going to point out. If you guys remember, back a few months ago, right as the Ebola thing was ramping up, what does Obama do? He invites all the presidents from all the African nations to Washington to have a conference about economic growth. Not about Ebola, about economic growth. And from everything that I've read, and you know, I've messaged Dinah Eversnyder a couple times, for anyone who remembers. She's from South Africa. Dinah wants to speak her truth. She's got so much to say. So we need to make some time to do a pre-record. She wants to record an interview and spew some truth. But from everything that I've understood, from what I've read and from what I've gathered speaking to her, Africa and the leadership in Africa is extremely, extremely corrupt.
Exactly.
And it always has been.
It always has been. And if you take a look at this march that started with the terrorists and the terrorists spreading into Africa, and then all of our, you know, our drone base, and then troops on the ground, and then, we had this outbreak and we need more troops on the ground, and then let's get all of your leaders here and discuss economic summit. And you see how this is just ramping, and now we have pharmaceutical companies in there doing live human testing on these vaccines that have never been tested on humans before in African nations. Do you see the agenda here? It's just so disgusting to me.
Because after they experiment on the Africans, they're going to come implement it here.
Right.
Well, but the thing is it's going to make billions of dollars for lots of people. For the military-industrial complex, for the big pharma, for big tobacco, because they're all involved now too with these genetically modified tobacco and the RNAi vaccines.
You're right. Since we quit smoking, they got to find another way to make our profit.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And all of Congress are invested in stocks. And I want to know who is invested in these technologies in these companies.
Almost everybody in Congress, I'll bet.
Well, I started really digging into it, and I found a couple links yesterday where you can actually plug in names and get financial statements.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I posted those. They should be, if you're on the Before the First Cup page on ucy.tv/BTFC, down the left-hand side, there's a bunch of news feeds. Under the Behind the Curtain feed, which I don't know if I called it that or not. I'm not on our page, but I can look. Under one of the feeds, I actually posted yesterday, if you want to get a heads up, because we're probably not going to have time to dig into it big time today, but tomorrow we can. Oh, yes, there were some postings about Congress is now a millionaires club. Congress rules give lawmakers leeway to invest.
I see all this.
The Office of the Clerk of the U.S. House of Representatives Financial Disclosure Report So there's a link there. That's the search page. But what was
interesting? It'd be great to put this out now, right before voting, and get these names out there.
Well, here's the best part. So I spent some time just trying to come up with names and plug them into the search tool because you can't do a drop down or anything. And I couldn't. The only one I came up with was Daryl Issa. I was punching like McCain and a couple other names. But then I found a story and that's also posted out here. There is a list of I believe it's the top 50 richest Congress members. So start copying it. Yes, rollcall.com.
Feinstein, Pelosi.
Yeah, well, Feinstein's in there. Yeah, I didn't see Pelosi, but I didn't scroll all the way down. 50 richest members of Congress in 2013. You can copy out of that site and paste it into the financial search site, and bazingo! There you go.
Oh, wow.
It's awesome. Oh, my God. That might be a story I do today for Anti-Media. Maybe I'll do that.
That's awesome, Jules.
And tie it to the video showing how congressional, here. It's exactly 1 month since the U.S. started its bombing campaign on Islamic State in Syria, which is ISIS, and has been quite a profitable operation for the army, for the arms industry, of course. On the first day, 47 Tomahawk missiles worth $65 million were dropped. 1 month on, and the jihadists are still in place. And it has been a bumper year for profits, guys. Didn't we say that? Q4, they were going to be creaming in their shorts, and they sure are.
Let's get those names posted right before elections and whoever's
I think we should. And only 11 people found interest in that. That pisses me off. Because you know what? That's the problem. Right. Nobody cares. But all this other psychological bullshit's going on as they're chucking the fixtures out the back door.
It's true, man.
And I mean, now, let's take, ISIS is just one small thing. You better believe that these guys probably have investments in Techmira and GlaxoSmithKline and all these other companies now that are ramping up these vaccines for these real or made up viruses and pandemics,
Exactly.
And then we also have the whole cyber industrial complex that we've seen now with Cyber Patrol. There was the story yesterday about how they're going to turn now and make that again the new focus because we're getting hacked all over. China just hacked Apple iCloud. Uh-oh.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Their payment system or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was, I don't know. I didn't really dig into it. All I needed to see is that there was another mass hacking and they blamed it on China. I'm like, uh-huh. Mr. Keith Alexander at $1 million a month.
Yeah.
You just see them. And I mean, Chertoff, when Chertoff left office after being involved with DHS after 9/11, and he had this company, right, for the body scanners.
Exactly.
Like, how freaking perfect is that? It's like you set yourself up to make profit on this after the fact.
Well, that's what that underwear bomber was all about, was to get those in there. And how to get on the plane? Some CIA agent got him on without even a passport. Right. That's not rigged.
It's all about the money, people, and I don't care who says that it's not. It is. Mm-hmm. They are robbing us blind, and they are taking us like... Someone mentioned lemmings in chat this weekend. Actually, when I was in high school, and my orchestra instructor used to always... talk about us being lemmings, how like one person would start playing too fast and everyone else would play too fast.
Right.
I mean, we are like lemmings, and the majority of the American public is dumb enough to just believe everything they say without question. Where were you ever taught that? Oh, that's what they're teaching in schools.
That's right.
What teaching in schools. You do what you're told. You take standardized tests. You learn what we tell you to learn. And
you learn to raise
do
your
it the
hand
way
for permission to speak, go to the bathroom, or anything. Hey, can I please? Yeah.
It's going to be worse than Common Core.
I still think that's a good skill, Zorie, to raise your hand and ask permission. Having an 8-year-old, trust me. Having an 8-year-old who...
It's getting you used to asking for permission to do even the most basic things.
Well, right. I mean, speaking while someone else is speaking, I think, like, my daughter talks as much as I do. We have the same disease. Okay, but when it is constantly, every time I'm around her, she's talking over the top of anything that I say on some completely different topic, it drives me batshit crazy. And so she's been really good. Like when we're at dinner.
But like, really think about it. For a bodily function, you have to raise your hand and ask permission. You know, to me, it's just a forming of ask permission for doing everything.
Well, no. I mean, maybe it's been a long time since you've been in school, but to raise your hand and ask permission while your teacher is in the middle of teaching and you're in 6th grade or whatever, I would say that that's appropriate. If you're in college, you never have to raise your hand and ask permission. You just get up and go to the bathroom and you come back. And if you miss it, that's tough shit, right?
Right.
But I mean, as a kid, I don't know. I think as kids, we need to teach them structure and we need to teach them how to work within the confines of society. But we also need to teach them to ask questions and to not believe something because someone tells them that it's true. Right. To do your own research, to dig deep into what's being taught to them, to understand all the details and draw their own conclusions. I mean, you still need to work within the confines. I do not believe in absolute wild not following any rules, because then we'd have absolute chaos. Yeah. It's blind obedience, exactly. But the thing is that the unfortunate fact of the matter is you have to learn how to walk the line between the two. And you got to be smart to do that. Right? You go to the outside world and you smile and you play the game. That's what it's about. You got to be a good card player. You got to know when to keep the ace in your sleeve.
Right.
Unfortunately. I mean, I don't go out and tell everyone all my private business just because I can. I always keep that close to my chest. You know, there might be a few people that I share everything with, but there's not many.
Right.
And I mean, following the rules and playing the game is just called life. You know, when you go to work, you don't talk about how your crazy weekend and all the crap you did. I don't know. I mean, I just think, though, that and you're absolutely right, Wendy, with the Common Core crap, it's going to get even worse than it was. But they are conditioning them to do these things without questioning. They don't like questioning. They don't want you to speak out. They don't want free speech. This hacker thing now, the self-radicalized, this whole new thing that now they're really trying to push is internet self-radicalized jihadists. Anyone who goes on the internet and starts questioning the official story is going to be considered internet radicalized.
That's right.
Am I right there?
Right. Everybody in the chat room. Hi, guys.
Anyone questioning the official paradigm is going to be considered an enemy of the state.
That's right.
And I think that's going to be the end result. Absolutely. We're all going to be lone wolves. And as they're making it now, the shooting in Washington that just happened, the kid was a homecoming king.
Yeah.
He was popular and on the football team.
He was a little native kid, too.
It could be anybody. That's what they're trying to get across. It could be anyone. It could be your next door neighbor. Oh, it could be a couple. Now, we've had 2 couples now between the Bundy thing and now the shooting that was in Southern Cali. I don't remember, San Diego, San Francisco, one of them. These cops that were shot by this couple that went on this rampage, the shooting spree.
Oh, yeah.
Another shooting spree couple. It could be a couple.
Say something.
Yeah, it could. I mean, it could be a lone wolf, or it could be all these other. It could be your next door neighbor.
Right.
And
it's the quiet ones you gotta watch.
Yeah, and they've been saying that a lot lately. They've been profiling the people who keep to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Any smart person isn't going to be out there. Like I just said, you got to know when to keep your cards close to your chest. right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to train our kids, though, with the social media to post every time they take a shit.
That's right.
Exactly.
Okay, so if you're not posting every time you took a shit, you must be hiding something. And this is the end result of a surveillance society that they're building, that I helped build, that I'm now helping to try to deconstruct. I don't believe in this at all.
Me neither.
You know, and then, absolutely, Zorie, the see something, say something. I saw a video, some cop giving a public, and I don't even remember which event it was since there's so many of them, but he was giving, the official statement, press conference, and the background behind him was all blue, and very subtly in the blue, and it almost looked like they had some 3D effects, so they must have done like a dual layer where they do the text in a real faint white, and then behind it they do a copy of the text. They offset it, I know because of, doing this in Photoshop. They offset it just like a hint or two, and they do it like in a gray or a black to make it look like it has a 3D look shadow to it, but real subtle in the blue background behind him at a diagonal. That's what it said over and over again. See something, say something. See something, say something.
Ew, that's creepy.
See something, say... It was creepy.
Subconscious picks that up.
Exactly. I was like, what kind of psychological bullshit are they putting now in the background of some press conference? And of course it was some, I'm sure it was a shooting or a killing or some new jihadist or axe murder or whatever. It was some traumatic event. And remember, before all this happened, we had been digging deep into a lot of the DARPA research that was being published about mind control.
That's
the fear
right.
button, beep, 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 beep. The trauma button, beep, 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 beep. That's what they're doing. I mean, this makes me so sick. I literally sometimes feel like I want to puke. And people don't see this because you know what? They're not looking at the big picture. They're looking at just what's being told to them, what they're believing. That's why I was really surprised. And if any of my friends are listening, they might be. I gave out the website and told them when the show was on. So if you guys are out there, good morning. I had a blast yesterday. But I was really surprised that my friends didn't all, because, I've known these people for a long time, and it's always, Jules a little eccentric.
Right.
They didn't tell me I was crazy, because they were friends. They were good friends.
It's
but they,
nice, though, not to be called crazy for a change.
Yeah, it's true. But they always knew me as a little eccentric. But nobody yesterday, called me out and said, Jill, you're batshit crazy. Nobody. And even with the Ebola thing, we had some good conversations. And I think all of us, except for one, and he's looking at the next one that comes up, took that CERT class, that emergency preparedness class. And that was all aside, we did it at different times. We didn't communicate about it. We didn't know that each other all took that. That class that I took, that FEMA class, where they had talked about the illegals coming across the border and it potentially being terrorists, remember? And they talked about the pandemic, and we did pandemic preparedness. This is all that stuff from 2006.
And yet when it happens, nobody knows what to do.
What was that?
And when it happens, the CDC, none of them seem to know what to do, even with all this preparedness.
And that was since 2006. And that was a federal program under Homeland Security, before it was Homeland Security. There was massive pandemic planning at a town level.
Right.
From federal, at a town level, on how to give out prophylaxis.
Remember the old civil defense.
Mm-hmm. It was very similar to that.
So your friend also took this FEMA class from back then?
All of our families were with us too. Our husbands, wives, kids.
Yeah.
But there were us four that we all worked together back starting in the mid-90s, and then some of us moved on, and then one of us actually came and worked with me then for 12 years at the place I moved on to. So we've known each other for a long time. But yeah, there were four of us. So out of four of us, three of us all took that class already.
Oh,
and
right
the fourth one is trying to find the next one. He was surprised that we all took it. He's like, oh, where was that? How was it? So
interesting.
It was interesting. It was interesting that we're all kind of on the same page.
And are they still giving those classes? Did anyone
Apparently, around the Buffalo region, they are. I don't know. I haven't seen them here around Rochester, but around the Buffalo region, yes, they are. I think there's a new one coming at the beginning of the year.
Wow.
They're called CERT, C-E-R-T.
Yeah. You can actually go online and take the online versions and
you
get
can.
certified. Yeah.
I would highly recommend it. I'm going to tell you, even though it's a federal program, and they're always suspect, there was great information in that class.
Yeah.
That was actually
just for your personal,
right.
safety.
It was all about personal responsibility if there were no first responders to show up and there was a massive emergency. That's what it was about.
Right. And not only that, but what my buddy's doing here, he got elected constable. He was taking those online certifications, and so that he could tell them, look, I'm certified. We don't need you around here. We've got it under control.
Yeah. Right.
That's the most important thing.
And it was great. I mean, they taught us how to extricate people from fallen buildings, how to triage, how to, especially like compound fractures, shock. I mean, it was an 8-week class we took. 8 weeks. It was one night a week for like 3 hours for 8 weeks.
Right, and it's going back to, remember in the old days, people took care of themselves. They did not wait for the government to come and help them. And it's getting back to that, self-responsibility.
Well, and this came on the heels. The reason why this happened is because it was FEMA trying to save face after the disaster that was Katrina.
Yeah.
Because there were no first responders, because it was such a huge disaster.
Right.
But I'm telling you, if you have the time and effort, search CERT, C-E-R-T. It was created initially out of a program that I believe it was the L.A. Fire Department, the LAFD, for fighting the fires from the Santa Ana winds that happen in California every year.
Right.
That's where they actually developed this program, and then the feds picked it up and ran with it.
My mom was talking about it a long time ago. She lives right down there in the Santa Ana wind area.
Hey, by the way, we are getting close to the end of the show, that was a really fast show. Sorry it took me so long to get online. I have the computer I broadcast from. My fan in my power supply started making this horrible winding noise. And
not good.
It was, no, not good at all. The fan in the power supply is bound. And I got a new can of forced air and got in there yesterday, powered everything down, which I don't even ever turn this machine off. But I was like, wow, that's a fire hazard. As the fan's going.
And it'll burn up your processor if you don't.
It'll burn up everything, I know.
Yep.
So I got to do something. But it took me 12 minutes to boot from dead machine. Anyway, all right, guys, we're at the last 20 seconds of the show, if you can even believe it. It is Monday night, so everybody make sure you stick around. Happy Monday. Have some coffee. Thank you so much for being on, and we're glad to have you back, Wendy. Thank you for being on with me all week, Zorie, last week. Everybody have a great day, and we will catch up with you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe. Get your cans of Lysol.
Yep. You're M100.
All right, guys. Everyone take care. We'll talk to you tomorrow.